Bonsoir à toutes et tous, Monsieur le Recteur, Messieurs les doyens et présidents d'institut, Mesdames et Messieurs, en votre titre et fonction, je vous souhaite la bienvenue à cette cérémonie de remise de 4 doctorats honoris causa dans le domaine des sciences et technologies de l'UC Louvain. Alors son format est certes inhabituel et je m'adresse donc non seulement aux quelques personnes qui sont rassemblées ici à Louvain-la-Neuve pour l'occasion, mais surtout à la foule que j'espère nombreuse et que je ne vois pas, et qui assiste à la retransmission en direct de cette cérémonie sur la toile. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to welcome you all at this awarding ceremony of the honorary doctorates of the sector of science and technology of UC Louvain. Unfortunately, because of the particular circumstances you are aware of, there is only a very limited number of guests present here today in Louvain-la-Neuve. We are here in the so-called Learning Center Pasteur, which is the library of the sector of science and technology. But I would like to address a special welcome to all of you, colleagues, former colleagues, friends and students who attend this ceremony online. And of course, I would like to extend this welcome to our 4 prestigious guests who will receive an honorary doctorate in a few moments. I refer to Professor Isabel Ahrens from Utrecht University, Professor Tim Benton from Chatham House, UK, Professor Yves Bréchet from Saint-Gobain, and Professor Matthew Gandhi from the University of Cambridge. For the first time, the 4 faculties associated with the 7 research institutes of the sector of science and technology will award honorary doctorate degrees together on a common and interdisciplinary theme that covers almost the entire area of expertise of the sector. The idea was launched 2 years ago, and the theme of sustainable development and technologies, which trajectories, was finally selected. The ceremony was supposed to take place in April this year, with a series of events planned on a couple of days, conferences, workshops, interdisciplinary debates, and involving active participation from professors, researchers, students. But you know the story. And then we postponed it to October 16 with the secret hope that the health crisis would be essentially behind us. But you know the story again. And so here we are. It's of course a deep disappointment, but we decided nevertheless to keep the agreed appointment of today to honor our 4 colleagues, considering that this would just be step one in a global process that we will restart in its original format as soon as possible in 2021. Now, to introduce the team selected for this ceremony, let me go back 20 years earlier, in the year 2000. On February 2nd of each year, our university awards honorary doctorates to eminent personalities in various fields. In the year 2000, as shown on the slide you see now, one of the personalities honored was Gro Harlem Brundtland. She was at that time chairperson of the OMS, the World Health Organization, after serving as Prime Minister of Norway. Perhaps it's not uninteresting to mention that during her tenure at the head of the World Health Organization, she had to manage the so-called SARS epidemic, and in this context, forced China to publish the available information on the emergence of the virus. Next to that, Gro Harlem Brundtland was also known as the chairperson of a commission of the United Nations called World Commission on Environment and Development, for which she was appointed by the UN General Secretary Pérez de Cuellar. At that time already, the UN General Assembly was aware and concerned about the heavy deterioration of the environment and the excessive and uncontrolled exploitation of natural resources. Under a presidency, an official report known as the Brundtland Report, but actually entitled Our Common Future, was released in December 1987. It is this document that introduced and defined the concept of sustainable development in the following way: development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Some 30 years later, almost everyone, recognizes the seriousness of the hour and the urgency to act, with the exception, however, of a few skeptics who deny the reality and refuse to face it because they do not want to take political responsibility for often unpopular measures that affect either the lives of individuals or economic and financial benefits. Don't ask me for names. You know who I'm talking about. Because of their responsibility in terms of education and research, the universities play a significant role in raising society's awareness and helping to find solutions. Scientists active in the field of science and technology are essential partners in the search for solutions that, of course, go beyond the technological aspect of things and include economic, social, and moral concerns. The science and technology sector of UC Louvain has chosen to honor 4 colleagues who address these questions in their respective field of expertise. Isabel Ahrens, a chemistry professor active in the field of biotechnology and biocatalytic processes. Tim Benton, professor of population ecology, deeply involved in transition trajectories for food systems. Yves Bréchet, engineer in materials science with an indefectible commitment in the energy policy and geopolitics. And Matthew Gandhi, specialist of environmental geography and political ecology. We are very honored to be able to bring together here, at least virtually, such a prestigious panel of eminent scientists and experts who all cross the natural boundaries of their own field to address the societal challenges that are at the heart of today's concerns and require urgent responses. I will now leave the floor to the colleagues who will present our 4 nominees. Thank you for your attention.
Dear Rector, dear Vice Rector, Deans of the faculties, Presidents of the Institute of the Science and Technology sector, it is my great honor and privilege to present to you Professor Isabel Ahrens, currently Dean at the Faculty of Science at Utrecht University. Isabel Ahrens obtained her PhD from Leiden University in 1994. She then moved to Ottawa in Canada for a postdoc with Professor Ingold and Dr. Weiner. And then she came back to the Netherlands, where she became professor in Delft University of Technology. She became director of the Bioengineering Institute in Delft before becoming professor of sustainable organic chemistry at Utrecht University. Initially trained as organic chemist, she started working on biomimetic iron complexes during her postdoc. And ever since, her research interests are connected to the principles of green chemistry, such as atom economy, avoiding waste, reducing solvents and auxiliaries, minimizing energy requirements, and using catalysts. She co-authored with Professor Sheldon a book that has great impact in the field. Clean, green, environmentally benign, and renewable processes are the key words that characterize the research and indeed the overall attitude of Isabel Ahrens. Her research and her teaching are all directed towards developing a society that is sustainable. She was among the first to test enzymes as catalysts for organic synthesis reactions to perform highly selective redox reactions. This allows to work at lower temperature, lower pressure, avoiding the use of precious or toxic metal complexes as catalysts. Her current research efforts deal with modified enzymes that allow to improve the catalytic activity and to develop new processes for the chemical industry. This opens the door to transformations that do not rely on petroleum chemistry, but it allows for bio-based molecules, such as agricultural waste, to enter into a circular economy. The concept of directed evolution of enzymes was awarded the Nobel Prize in 2018 to Professor Frances Arnold, as you can see on the picture, with whom Isabel Ahrens shares many research interests. Going one step further, enzymes allow the implementation of flow chemistry and continuous processes, with better control on heat and mass transfer and the possibility of light activation rather than traditional heating in large stirred tank reactors. Isabel Ahrens has a strong passion for education. She has always been a very proactive lecturer in several TU Delft programs: molecular science and technology, life science and technology, and chemical engineering. She was the coordinator of a MOOC, massive open online course on industrial biotechnology. This course, completely free of charge, reached an audience of thousands of students yearly from countries all over the world and still runs on the EDX platform. She has also been involved in various committees and networks to promote female PIs and professors. And for that, I thank her warmly. Isabel Ahrens is an enthusiastic coach to her junior staff, PhD students and postdocs. Dr. Frank Ullman, now associate professor in the biocatalysis group in Delft, is an ERC Consolidator laureate. And Christina Janashvili was recently awarded a prestigious fellowship from the Centre de Biophysique Moléculaire at CNRS Orléans. Hence, a research impulse reaches even further. As you can see, as you saw on the picture, she's talking to kids in schools to transmit her passion for science even further. For all those reasons, I have the honor to ask you, Professor and Rector Vincent Blondel, to award the title of Docteur honoris causa of the Faculty of Science of the Université Catholique de Louvain to Professor Isabel Ahrens.
Whereas Professor Isabel Ahrens, born in 1966, is an internationally renowned scientist in the field of chemistry and biotechnology who holds a PhD in Physical Organic Chemistry from Leiden University. He's a Royal Dutch Academy of Science Fellow at the Delft University of Technology and Professor of Biocatalysis and Organic Chemistry, has been Dean of the Faculty of Science at Utrecht University since 2018 and Vice President of a panel of the Netherlands Organization for Scientific Research since 2014. Whereas she is a member of the Royal Netherlands Academy of Arts and Science, of which she chairs the Van der Sanden Impact in Kaart Committee, and of the Royal Holland Society of Science and Humanities, and was decorated Officer of the Order of Orange-Nassau. Whereas she founded the Institute of Biotechnology at Delft University of Technology and has proven her dedication to green and sustainable chemistry throughout her career. Whereas she's been a pioneer in combining chemical and biocatalytic processes and developed new enzymes capable of effectively and selectively catalyzing chemical reactions to reduce their environmental impact. Whereas she has chaired Delft Women in Science and helped make the position of women in science and technology more visible where they are underrepresented. Whereas she has supervised more than 40 theses or postdoctoral researchers and created a MOOC in industrial biotechnology on the EDX platform, where she edits also green processing and synthesis and is a member of the scientific committees of several recognized journals. For all these reasons, by virtue of the power bestowed upon us, we appoint and proclaim Professor Isabel Ahrens, Doctor honoris causa of the Université catholique de Louvain, Faculty of Science, et je vous invite à l'applaudir. So, Professor Ahrens, we're now going to do something I've never done in the past. Yes, it works. Look.
You're too fast, I think.
I'm passing this to you, so it will go out of the screen and it will come to your screen, right? And there you get it. Did you get it?
Thank you.
Okay, it comes. There is some distance, but it's coming.
Okay, yeah, I can't see you, so I'm a bit in the blind. Yeah.
There is none? Okay, yes, you can put it on. Please put it on. Perfect. Very well. Okay, so congratulations again. Thank you.
Thank you. So I would like to express my thank you, lecturer, cher recteur, Professeur Blondel, cher Professeur Hermans. Je voudrais vous remercier beaucoup pour la distinction de docteur honoris causa présentée par l'Université catholique de Louvain-la-Neuve. Si vous me permettez, je vais continuer dans l'anglais. It's my great honor to receive this honorary doctorate from your esteemed university, the Faculty of Science, and both her institutes, the Louvain Institute of Biomolecular Science and Technology, and the Institute of Condensed Matter and Nanoscience. I would like to extend my thanks to your university in general, that you, in this COVID-19 time, find the occasion to honor the academic tradition, where we celebrate and look forward to the achievements in science, technology, and education. I'm proud to serve in this academic tradition and to make pivotal contributions in the area of sustainable chemistry. At this occasion, I would also like to thank my universities that allowed me to pursue my academic ambitions. Delft University of Technology, where I worked in the area of biocatalysis and industrial biotechnology, and where I had the honor to work with Professor Roger Sheldon, who introduced me into green chemistry. Now, Utrecht University, where I have the privilege to lead the Faculty of Science. I also would like to thank my husband, daughter, and son, who support me so much in my journey. These are strange times. I wish I could have been with you and could have visited the campus. Sophie and I already in April designed a wonderful program where I could meet young researchers, students, and share my experiences on diversity and inclusion and on the advancement of scientific careers. However, we will have to be patient, and I have something to look forward to. An important guideline in my work are the 12 principles of green chemistry. Now, in 2020, they are more valid than ever. Green chemistry is about the contribution that we as scientists, industrial companies, and policymakers can make for a better planet. Principle 1 says prevent waste. It sounds so simple. We as chemists have created wonderful products, ranging from medicines to semiconductors. But while doing so, we have often neglected to worry about waste that we produce. Not only by us, but also by consumers. Think of plastic. Innovation and finding purposes for this waste in advance is key, leading to a circular society. The EU, under the guidance of Frans Timmermans, has launched an ambitious Green Deal. I strongly believe that this pandemic era can be a breaking point for sustainability goals. Simply the realization that traveling has a downside and that Zoom and Teams can make our life easier is a good start. I would like to cite Rachel Carlson, an American marine biologist and author whose work stood at the beginning of the global environmental movement. In her book, Silent Spring, from 1962, she combines poetic writing with a fierce advocating of facts against the widespread use of DDT, dichloro, diphenyl, trichloromethane, for the chemists among us. One of her quotes is, "In nature, nothing exists alone." She rallies against simplification and solving one problem in isolation. She was at the start of what some call ecofeminism. It's about taking our responsibility towards nature seriously. If you extend her ideas into the present era, then we can proudly say that in our modern society, we have already introduced many checks and balances that force us to take a wider perspective on technology solutions. It's also one of the reasons why it takes so much time to introduce a new vaccine. But at the same time, we're not there yet. Taking into account societal, economical, and health perspectives requires more and interdisciplinary science. Finally, I would like to address you students who just entered university or are about to enter society. These are wonderful times. You can make a difference. You have the knowledge and energy to come up with ideas and solutions for a better world. A world in which we as scientists can have pleasant lives, but also act responsibly. Thank you.
Dear Rector, dear Vice Rector, dear Deans and President of Institute of the Science and Technology sector, dear colleagues, dear students that are probably on YouTube, and dear friends. How to explore the trajectories for the 21st centuries. How to be both in science and in action. How to see the present and think of the future. To answer this question, I propose to follow in the footsteps of those who have made their way from the first concerns about biodiversity at the end of the 20th century towards a systemic vision of the major issues that will determine our 21st century. I propose to follow in the footsteps of those go-between who are leading the way towards a society resilient to climate change and respectful of biodiversity. Walking is Tim Benton's favorite hobby, but walking is also what characterizes his journey. Unable to stay motionless, he was walking from the grasslands and fields of Yorkshire to the UN Arena in New York. Tim is as a rambler exploring the hills. Biologist, ecologist, biodiversity specialist, Tim Benton, a Bachelor of Oxford and PhD of Cambridge, already a proof of pluralism, has been a researcher and professor for almost 40 years. After a thesis on the behavior of scorpions, he very quickly became interested in open environments, particularly grasslands. He therefore made the link between his skills as an ecological biologist and the concrete issues of biodiversity in a farming context. His 2003 paper on farmland biodiversity remains the reference on the subject. It is therefore hardly surprising that in 2011, and for 5 years, he will become the champion of the UK Global Food Security Programme. In Belgium, we reserve the title of champion for cyclists or footballers, not scientists. However, the word champions refer to the one who fights on the field, who defends a just cause. It is at the global level that Tim Benton will now defend a vision of agriculture that can only be thought linked to the food dimension. Indeed, as an ecologist, a biologist interested in systems, he has understood that it is from a systemic point of view that we need to think and rethink the link between agriculture and food, the link between the North and the South, the link between well-being and the environment. He has become one of the leading specialists in food systems and their trajectories. A trajectory full of complexities. Ending his term as the champion of global food security UK, he said, as Freddie Mercury says in the rock anthem, I consider it a challenge before the whole human race. And it is a much more complex challenge than I realized 5 years ago. At the same time, he was in charge of research strategy at the University of Leeds. And later he joined the Chatham House. Strategy will be the new word at the heart of Tim Benton's life. To be a scientist and to integrate the public debate implies a strategic vision. Not prescriptive, not saying what to do, but exposing with clarity, rigor, and intelligence the possible pathway and the inescapable consequences of our societal and political choices. This is what the Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change, IPCC, has been doing for years. And when I contacted Tim Benton at the end of 2019 to invite him to be a DHE at our university, he was finalizing the summary for policymakers of the latest IPCC report on climate change and land. By becoming the Chatham House reference on emerging risk, energy, environment, and resources program, Tim Benton was joining a century-old institution that is proud of its independence and its integration into the world. An institution with the mission, I quote, of helping governments and societies build a sustainable, secure, prosperous and just world, end of quotation. A prosperous and just world, it is our common goal, our common future. Always smiling, but determined, Tim has chosen an original and not always comfortable path off the classic avenues of an academic career. He is one of these few academics who, without losing their scientific roots and their ethic of rigor, help society explore new trajectories towards greater sustainability, coherence, and meaning by always increasing its system boundaries. For all these reasons, I have the honor to ask you, Professor and Rector Vincent Blondel, to confer upon Professor Tim Benton the title of Doctor honoris causa de l'Université catholique de Louvain.
Whereas Professor Tim Benton, born in Cambridge in 1964, is Director of Research at Chatham House and Professor of Population Ecology at the University of Leeds, where he became professor in 2005 and has been head of institute, pro-dean for research, and dean, having studied at the University of Oxford before completing a PhD at the University of Cambridge and serving as a researcher at the University of East Anglia and a senior lecturer at the University of Stirling and the University of Aberdeen. Quite a few institutions, indeed. Whereas Professor Benton is an internationally renowned scientist who has published more than 150 scientific articles on how biological systems respond to environmental changes, the interaction between agriculture and the environment, and transition trajectory for food systems. Whereas since 2016, he has been Distinguished Visiting Fellow at Chatham House, where he directs the Emerging Risks, Energy, Environment, and Resource Program. Whereas he was a champion of the Global Food Security Program for the United Kingdom from 2011 to 2016, was in charge of the Global Agenda of the World Economic Forum, and co-author of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report within the framework of the Special Report on Food, Land Use, and the Climate. Whereas through his commitment, systematic approach, ability to summarize and to demonstrate his skills in many fields, he has developed an inspiring interdisciplinary and integrative vision of the possible trajectory of food systems. Whereas he's a model for those who want to combine scientific rigor, academic skills, and dedication to society. Whereas he has the ability to mobilize both political and economic decision makers in national, European, and international arenas. For all these reasons, by virtue of the power bestowed upon us, we appoint and proclaim Professor Tim Benton, Doctor honoris causa of the Université catholique de Louvain, Faculty of Bioengineering. Congratulations. So you're ready for this exercise? Yes? I'm passing it to you? Yes? Let's look at this. Yes, yes, it's passing. It's passed.
Right. If you'll excuse me, I will sit down. Otherwise, I cannot see my screen. Right. Thank you so much for your kind words. I am overwhelmed by what Philippe has just been saying and what you, Rector, have said. It is obviously an extreme honor to receive this award from such an old and illustrious university. One does not build a career alone, of course, so I must thank my family and many colleagues for the support over the years. I have worked for all of our futures, but never alone. When I was thinking about what to say here, I thought about your old alumni and remembered a period of my life when I was interested in map making. And of course, Gerardus Mercator was an alumnus of your old university. And if you look back at his maps, the map of 1538 from his time with you was the first both to depict North and South America, so as an icon for the birth of globalization, and also was an example of the technological innovation that drove and was driven by the great thirst for knowledge out of the Renaissance. The growth of innovation and globalization has jointly underpinned society's development for the last 500 years. We are all privileged to benefit from it. However, on the back of centuries of economic development, global societies have developed a compelling myth. That myth is that societal well-being is a simple function of exponential economic growth. GDP arises from societies consuming more and more year on year. Ultimately, consumption growth relies on the use of natural resources, which of course are finite. The myth that finite resources can underpin infinite economic growth is a dangerous one. Climate change and environmental degradation are posing increasingly systemic and even existential risks. Daily, climate change-driven events make the news: floods, storms, heat waves, and wildfires. We have also long known that climate change will disrupt ecologies and make pest and disease outbreaks more likely, including, this year, swarms of locusts and COVID-19. We are literally driving our environment to breaking point. We need to reframe our visions for the future. We really do need sustainable development for every country on Earth. Our conventional economic framing is that sustainable development will arise naturally out of the interaction of markets and innovators. As natural resources get scarcer, markets will create an incentive for the emergence of new technologies that either use the scarce resources more efficiently or switch to using other, less scarce resources. In that way, innovation becomes a mechanism to ration our natural capital. Look at the clean energy transition, as Isabel was talking about, or the emergence of cellular meat, or the adoption of Zoom that allows us to reduce travel. Will innovations like these give us sustainable development, or will they just give us less unsustainable development? The paradox of productivity suggests the latter. The paradox of productivity was first suggested by the 19th century English economist William Jevons, who pointed out that if you make coal-fired power stations more efficient, you would expect to use less coal. Instead, the reverse happened. The more energy efficient generation made cheaper energy. This stimulated demand, which led to more coal being used. Plentiful, cheap, green energy will stimulate more energy consumption. More electric cars, more bikes, more cooling units, more computers, more phones, more food, more everything. But each will require more resources that require natural capital. The wrongness of our conventional economic framing is exemplified by a conversation I had with a government economist a few years back. I was extolling the virtues of healthy diets to reduce the considerable burden on the health service and the environment. Oh no, he said, we couldn't do that because that would mean we'd have fewer nurses and doctors and our GDP would go down. Of course, technology will underpin sustainable development, but we need to ensure two things to create the enabling environment for its work. First, and least controversially, we need to innovate in the way that the market works, so that the impact of our consumption on climate, biodiversity, air and water quality is really priced in to act as a brake on unsustainable resource use and unsustainable consumption. Second, and more radically, we need to restructure our ideologies and our economies to put the growth of well-being, not the growth of GDP, at the center. Well-being requires income, for sure, but it requires health, which relies on clean air, good climate, healthy diets, and so on. It also requires good mental health, which in turn relies on a healthy environment, inclusive and just societies, and a sense of community. We know that, above a rather limited level, wealth accumulation doesn't make people or societies happier. And we increasingly know that our unsustainable development threatens us all, rich and poor. Imagine the innovations that would arise if the innovation ecosystem were really powered, not by wealth accumulation, but by well-being accumulation, where the rewards were for selling less, but better, where social cohesion and experience were more important than consumption. That is the path for truly sustainable development. Universities, as the real engines of technological, social, and governance innovation, have a key role to play in driving this right sort of innovation. Thank you very much, everybody.
Their colleagues from science and technology sector and beyond, their Yves. The challenge of introducing a scientist of the stature of Yves Bréchet is commensurate with the pleasure of presenting the richness of the person. Let me start with the scientific playground of Yves Bréchet. The world of materials and the field of material science and engineering. This is the field he has been teaching since 1988, becoming in 92 full professor at INP Grenoble at the age of 31, which I heard was the youngest ever in France. Yves Bréchet has for long given his heart to metals, with a slight preference for aluminum over steel. Yves had and still has a profound impact in the research area on the physicochemistry and mechanical behavior of materials. His motto has always been to embrace the chain of relationships between the processing conditions, the evolution of the microstructures, the behavior of the small animals that you should see on the slide, named dislocations, and finally, the mechanical properties of these materials. At the turn of the millennium, he was among the first in France to popularize the rational material selection approach initiated by Mike Ashby from Cambridge. From there, he got interested on how to extend the envelope of materials by promoting the novel field of architectured materials, which guides the invention of new system combination, exhibiting new sets of performances. And from there, he became sometimes unfaithful to metals. This path brought him being now the scientific director of Saint-Gobain, playing now with glasses and ceramics. The contribution of Yves Bréchet to science can hardly be covered. Aside from material science, he contributed to biology, energy systems, fluid mechanics, and even the phenomenon of hand clapping in concert halls, for which he is considered as a world expert, which is useful today. These contributions reflect through about 500 papers and a very high number of citations, 30 prizes and awards that you can discover on Wikipedia. The intellectual attitude of Yves Bréchet inherits from a long legacy of scientists and philosophers. I hope Yves will not dismiss the two references you see on the slide. The first is Immanuel Kant, for the importance of using the right sphere of rationality for the right type of problems in science, in politics, or in ethics. In this context, it is worth mentioning his deep involvement over the last 5 to 10 years in establishing sound basis in the debate regarding the role of scientific experts and the rationality of political decisions. Yves has communicated a lot on the question of the disqualification of the experts by the media, the politics, and the public, about the dangers of this attitude for a society, and about the responsibility of scientific experts. To quote only one element, I remember Yves stating that the expert communicates several options to the person requesting the advice, possibly with his opinion on the best choice, and then remains silent as long as he is covered by a mandate. This must be put in perspective within the context of the current corona crisis and of the sudden, sometimes chaotic, requalification of the scientific experts. The second reference could be Denis Diderot, not for his private life, but for the importance always put forward by Yves to place his research in the global, I would say encyclopedic, understanding of the progress of science and of the society. Yves is among the rare scientists still able to contemplate the map of the different disciplines and to express universal viewpoints. The style. Yves Bréchet starts a day at 5 o'clock, quickly proceeding with the first of a long series of coffees, often with the first meeting at the bar of a train station. All his collaborators, involving several colleagues at UC Louvain, have had this privilege of such early morning meetings with him. Every interaction with Yves Bréchet is an integral experience of contrast, of intellectual greed and sobriety in lifestyle, of classicism in the narrative and anti-conformism in the behavior, in ironic humor and in kindness. Yves remembers details about the health of the children of his collaborators, cares about hopeless migrants, and respects more his chauffeur than his ministry of tutelle. Yves Bréchet spends his day fighting against stupidity and trying to raise the global level of intelligence of mankind. A last meeting takes place at 10 in the evening, followed by a bœuf bourguignon, a sonate of Bach, and a good book. The topic of this honorary degree celebration is about the links between technologies and sustainable development in the context of defining feasible and relevant trajectories. Materials are playing a key role in this context, as all our objects and devices are made out of materials, with energy and pollution at all steps of the life cycle. But the other reason it is a privilege to have Yves Bréchet helping us for digging into this subject is his recent experience from 2012 to 2018 as French High Commissioner for Atomic Energy. Yves has been at the core of the analysis of the energy trajectory for France and in the difficult selection of the best mix of nuclear and renewable energy sources. For all this reason, I have the honor to ask you, Professor and Rector Blondel, to award the title of Docteur honoris causa de l'École Polytechnique de Louvain to Yves Bréchet.
Whereas Yves Bréchet, born in 1961, is an engineer who studied at École Polytechnique de Paris with a master's degree in history of science and solid-state physics, a PhD from INPG Grenoble, and a postdoctorate from McMaster University, became senior lecturer at INPG Grenoble and in 1992, professor, held 3 mandates at the Institut Universitaire de France, visiting professorships at Jiaotong University, Monash University, is a member of the French Academy of Science, and was High Commissioner for Atomic Energy from 2012 to 2018. Whereas he is a scientist of global renown in the field of science and material engineering, with major discoveries in the development of new alloys and architectural materials and their mechanical behavior, as well as in the evolution of microstructures and biological systems. Whereas he has contributed significantly to the teaching of material-related subjects for a variety of engineers and in human science using problem-based approaches. Whereas he has received many awards for his scientific work, such as the CNRS Silver Medal and the Légion d'honneur. Whereas he has played a major role as a High Commissioner and advisor to the French government in terms of energy policy in the scientific management of the French Atomic Energy Commission. Whereas he has deeply involved in the debate over the importance of bringing scientific expertise back to the heart of political decision-making. And as Professor Pardoun just said, we know how important this is today. Whereas he acts as a bridge between disciplines, incorporates philosophy into any scientific approach, and creates a dialogue between the science of material, geopolitics, history, biology, and mechanics. Whereas he exhibits unfailing humor and boundless energy, we've seen this in his agenda, a love for penguins, Belgian beers, and cartoons, and both humanistic erudition and sheer humanity. For all these reasons, and also to the fact that he's an expert on the physics of hand clapping, which we'll use in a minute, by virtue of the powers bestowed upon us, we appoint and proclaim Yves Bréchet, Docteur honoris causa of the Louvain School of Engineering of the Université Catholique de Louvain. So Yves, I've had the pleasure of meeting you here a few months or a few years ago. So I hope the opportunity will be given to me in the future and for the 3 other doctorate honoris causa to give this in physical presence, but today I give it, award it in remote way, right? So let me pass this to you. Okay, so here you are. Yes.
It is really an honor and a pleasure to receive this honorary degree from the Catholic University of Louvain. And I thank Thomas for his kind words with his benevolent sense of humor that I consider as a characteristic of Belgian culture. Another characteristic also deeply rooted in the Catholic monastic tradition is the beers, but rather difficult to share by Zoom, but hopefully the delay will not be too long. Needless to say, this honor is to be shared with the members of the material science community I've been interacting with over the years, and which very often are also in the vicinity of the Université Catholique de Louvain by a sort of friendly contagion. I've been working for many years with colleagues in the material science department on many different topics, from fracture mechanics to phase transformations, from architectured materials to innovative processes. It would be too long to list all the collaborators who have all become friends. But this long experience also gave me the opportunity to appreciate also the quality of your students and to build strong links with my former university. I know nothing more rewarding than to see ongoing collaboration between people you have put in contact in their prime. nothing gives more the deep feeling that science is a matter of a long-term commitment between people who share the same intellectual interest, but also the same intellectual values. Many years sharing common research interests, but also discussing on similar topics of concern, such as the role of science in society, the relation between science, basic science and technology, innovative teaching methods. There are many things we have been exploring, and of course, as any exploration, there is still a lot to do. I owe many things to the UCL, and you had one more with this honorary degree. Not only the pleasure of a friendly welcome in your community, but also the opportunity to meet other colleagues from different horizons and to work with them. The idea of having a workshop on sustainable development in relation with technologies, with many different aspects to think about what can be done on a topic where many debates are sadly focused on what can be claimed, keeping away from vague rhetorics to go deeper in analyzing the possible trajectory, is very much in the style of your academic community. I've never seen an engineering problem solved by forgetting about initial condition, neglecting the constraint, and discarding the objective. And this is not a simple engineering problem. It's a much more complex one than an engineering problem, and that requires even more rigor if possible. It is sadly very much this confusion that we currently observe when sustainable development is discussed. We should not forget about what makes things feasible. It is the duty of a scientist to contribute to a rational approach of this most important question, and I'm looking forward to discussions and sharing with you about these problems. And to keep the balance, what we have to do as scientists is to keep the balance, to paraphrase Paul Valéry, between the oversimplified, which is wrong, and the over-detailed, which is useless. Participating to this experience will add to the pleasure of being officially one of yours with this honorary degree. And thank you all, and really looking forward for the future in real life, in physical way. Thank you very much.
Dear Rector, dear Vice Rector of the Science and Technology sector, dear colleagues and students, dear Matthew. The fields of landscape and urban planning, architecture and architectural engineering have a key role to play in identifying and co-designing novel socio-ecological and technological trajectories into the future of our communities. As far as it is sustained by dialectical and hybridized conceptions of urbanity, the urban arena will remain a focus of contestation and synthesis for different forms of agency, materiality, and imagination to coexist and flourish. It is precisely along these lines of research and action that Professor Matthew Gandhi has provided a unique perspective on today's challenges, as well as new insights for the work of present and future designers and planners. Matthew is Professor of Geography and Fellow of King's College at the University of Cambridge, where he currently leads the ERC Advanced Grant Rethinking Urban Nature. He previously taught at the University College London, where he founded the Interdisciplinary Centre Urban Laboratory. Through his research and actions, Matthew has provided novel conceptual instruments to rethink the production of urban space and its cultural and political dimension in the face of global ecological transformations and challenges. His engagement as an urban field ecologist started well before his academic activity, as seen in this picture of Matthew at the age of 18, conducting a study of butterflies in Wales. This engagement has continued with rigor and passion, for example, during the extensive fieldwork he conducted with his team for the Rethinking Urban Nature project and the shooting of his documentary, Natura Urbana, in Berlin. Indeed, his work on the dynamics of urban nature in its spontaneous forms and produced dimensions and on cities' unintentional landscapes are among the most significant contributions to knowledge that Matthew has provided over the last 25 years. Matthew's recent book, The Botanical City, with Sandra Jasper, represents the latest chapter in Matthew's long-lasting research on novel conceptions of cities as botanical fields, an exploration into spontaneous life and ecology of neglect and abandonment, ruins and wastelands as heterotopic spaces for discovery and collective memory. His Natura Urbana documentary narrates a story of intergenerational scientific and cultural fascination for one of the many accidental gardens that Matthew has studied across the world. These are the Brachen of Berlin, patch of said wasteland where the wall once stood and then covered with spontaneous life. The film shows how the Brachen have produced a variety of unusual biotopes that have been the focus of botanical excursions and the reservoir of social encounters and civic life. Another prolific line of research in Matthew's work concentrates on urban metabolism and cyborg urbanization. Among the several milestones, I shall mention Matthew's first documentary film, Liquid City, as well as his two books, Concrete and Clay and The Fabric of Space, both honored with several international awards. These contributions have suggested a novel synthesis of political ecology and cyber conceptualizations of the resource circulation that underpin the transformation of nature into commodities, the particularity of local context, and the fluidity of urban form. Such efforts have built a stronger case for dialectical conception of urban metabolism and a new understanding of other than humans' dimension of urban space and the agency of nature. They have expanded the urban metabolism agenda beyond anatomical analogies and toward a critical appraisal of the social and biophysical dimensions that produce new form of urban hybrid nature. As a personal note of gratitude to Matthew, I shall conclude with a reference to Michelangelo Antonioni's masterpiece, Deserto Rosso. Antonioni's work as a particular space in Matthew's research, and this movie might be seen as a bridge between Matthew's earlier works on cinematic landscapes and his recent overtures to urban and affective atmospheres. Surely many years and ideas have passed since Antonioni's modernist excursion into the landscape of the industrial landscape, its living machines and human mental and spatial displacement, but the entanglement between space and subjectivity and how this encompasses multiple other than humans interaction needs new trajectory and theoretical trajectories. This is what Matthew reminds us in his latest work on the nexus of urban space and affective atmosphere and the interplays between emotional and material life. I'm sure these efforts will illuminate new points of departure for a conceptual dialogue between production of urban space, and I quote Matthew here, the historiographies of the body, the perceptual realm, and philosophical understandings of what it means to be human. For all these reasons, I have the honor to ask Professor and Rector Blondel to confer upon Professor Matthew Gandhi the title of Doctor honoris causa of the Faculty of Architecture, Architecture Engineering and Urban Planning of the Université Catholique de Louvain. Thank you.
Whereas Professor Matthew Gandhi, born in 1965, you may actually have noticed that we had a 1961, a 64, a 66, and now we have a 65. So this is a good year for being born in the 60s. He's a renowned scientist in the field of cultural and environmental geography and political ecology who earned a PhD in geography from the LSE in London, worked at the University of Sussex, the University College London, and the University of Cambridge, where he directs the ERC Advanced Grant Rethinking Urban Nature project and has been, since 2015, a professor of cultural and historical geography and was a visiting professor at many universities, including Columbia University, UCLA in Los Angeles, and Humboldt University in Berlin. Whereas his research has shed new light on the production of the urban space and its cultural and political dimensions in the face of ecological transformation and has opened new perspective on the dynamics of urban nature in its spontaneous forms. Whereas in 2005, he founded the Urban Lab at University College London, which has encouraged an interdisciplinary approach to urban challenges and whose activities have considerably boosted the international profile of research, teaching, and practice in landscaping, urban planning, and architecture. Whereas his work has been honored with several awards, including the 2003 Spiro Kostov Prize, the 2015 Meridian Book Award, and the 2016 International Planning History Society Prize. Whereas he was elected Fellow of the British Academy in 2016 and of the United Kingdom Academy for Social Science in 2015. Whereas his documentary film, Natura Urbana, won awards worldwide, and his involvement in London citizen initiatives, such as the Hackney Biodiversity Partnership, demonstrates his dedication to the preservation of biodiversity and urban ecology. For all these reasons, by virtue of the power bestowed upon us, we appoint and proclaim Professor Matthew Gandhi, Doctor honoris causa of the Université Catholique de Louvain, Faculty of Architecture, Architectural Engineering, and Urban Planning. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You've seen it happen already 3 times, right? So now you should be prepared for this. You ready?
Actually, I can't see anybody.
Yeah. So I'll pass something to you, and it will happen. It will appear on your screen, right? I'll do it 1, 2, 3, and it should appear on your screen. Does it appear on your screen?
No, I have to imagine it.
Okay, very well. This is fine too. Okay, very well. I'll leave you the floor. Since you can't see us, I'll leave the floor to you now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll just very briefly say, firstly, a big thank you to Vincent and also Daniela for making this whole thing possible. It's a really wonderful honor. As academics, we work for long periods without really knowing whether people will find the work interesting, whether it finds a resonance with policymakers, people in practice, and so on. So it's really, really nice to know that your work is actually finding a wider audience. As the introductions said, interdisciplinary work is very important, as well as international work that connects scholars and practitioners together. And in terms of what I'm doing now, I'm completing a book manuscript on urban nature, where I hope to bring together many of the things mentioned in the introduction, ranging from animals to the politics of plants as indicators for urban change. So I think I'll leave it there to say thank you so much for this.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, and so we just apologize for these small technical problems we had during the last speech, but anyway, I'm sure that we can have also the speech of our guests later, and we can diffuse them later. So we are, of course, deeply honored to have these 4 new colleagues as members of our community, and I would like to thank them for having accepted this distinction from our university. We hope that this event will promote future contacts and collaborations between us and our respective institutions. Well, now, usually I should now invite you to a brilliant reception and a drink with local Belgian beer for you, Yves, but it will, of course, not be possible. But I would like to thank the organizing committee, who had the particular difficult task this year to adapt continuously to the external constraints and changes required. So a very warm thank to Philippe Barret, Sophie Hermans, Thomas Pardoun, and Daniela Perotti, who were in front office for this event, and also to Julie Claus, who acted as main coordinator for this ceremony. And I would suggest that we give all of them a big applause. So to conclude this ceremony, I just would like to mention a few observations. 2 weeks ago, Emmanuelle Charpentier was awarded the Nobel Prize in Chemistry. In 2018, she received an honorary doctorate from the Faculty of Science of this university. In 2019, Esther Duflo was awarded the Nobel Prize in Economy, 9 years after she was made honorary doctor of UC Louvain. In 2018 and 2006, Dr. Mukwege and Mohamed Yunus received the Nobel Prize for Peace, a few years after they were made honorary doctorate of UC Louvain. In 2001, Barry Sharpless won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry, 5 years after he was made honorary doctor of the Faculty of Sciences of this university. So I will stop here. This list is not exhaustive, and I will not go back to 1425. But let me close this list with one more name, Professor Paul Kutzen, a pioneer in atmosphere and environmental chemistry, who was awarded the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 1995, 3 years after he received an honorary doctorate of the Faculty of Sciences of this university. So I will not go further with the analysis or the interpretation of these facts. But dear Professor Ahrens, Benton, Brechet, and Gandhi, we warmly congratulate you once again, but we are also fully confident that another bright future awaits you. Now, the objective remains to bring you all together here in Louvain-la-Neuve as soon as possible, and to implement the very exciting program that we had originally planned for this event. Maybe in April 21, or at the latest in October 21, to commemorate the first anniversary of the official ceremony of today. And so the party that we are going to reserve for you at that moment will be even more sparkling than the one we had planned for today, and which we had to give up. So I wish to thank you for being here, for viewing, for listening. Have a nice weekend, and see you soon here in Louvain-la-Neuve physically. Thank you.